Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
The Clinton Foundation, AIPAC's partners, the Islamic Circle of North America, Osama bin Laden, Grameen America, Shore Bank. While all of these might seem as if they're random, unconnected entities, what if in fact they were all connected?
Welcome back. It is Saturday. Normally I don't do shows on Saturday, but this is a pretty important set of information we've been working on for a long time, and our analyst slash whistleblower slash individual put this together is a military vet, and he has spent years doing research on the systems that run our elections, how they're all connected, what they're connected to, and we're going to bring a lot of receipts. Now, this is a lot of information that you're going to take in, so we're not going to get it all done in one episode. But what I will tell you is that what you're about to hear is 100% accurate, every bit of it. And there'll be some stuff that we'll clean up as we go along that, to add information. We're going to use a mind map that'll kind of show you what the connections are between the two, or 3 or 5 or 10, or in this case, hundreds. But I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to welcome B to the show. B, welcome.
Hey Joe, thanks for having me. I'm B. I'm a open source intelligence analyst slash researcher, partially by trade, but also by hobby, due to my military experiences. Basically, what I've uncovered here is just an accumulation of years of various different investigations, which have all kind of amalgamated into this one mind map. Now, between these 116 nodes, which are included on here, we'll go from everything from ThoughtWorks to Seth Rich to the DNC to Muhammad Yunus, the current interim advisor who's leading Bangladesh, all the way to how they connect into Al-Qaeda and even people involved with Jeffrey Epstein. So, and of course, Dominion voting is right smack in the middle of it. So with that, I'll surrender the mic back to Joe, and we'll get going on this mind map here.
But let's just get started. You're not gonna see a whole lot of me. You're gonna hear a whole lot of B. You'll get some commentary where Patrick will come in. If you haven't noticed, we have masked B's voice. We are not going to put him on screen. It is dangerous to draw all the conclusions and bring all these things together based on this information. So we're going to do the best we can to protect B and to protect his identity. So let's start with Roy Signham. Let's start at the top. B, I'm going to give you the floor. Let's put the mind map up and let's start there.
Okay, perfect. So we'll go ahead and start here with Neville Roy Signham. And if we click on the link on the node for the Newsline mag, it'll bring up an article which just discusses in general some of the activity in which he partakes in. You'll see this article is titled "The Big Business of Uyghur Genocide Denial." This article basically goes into all the background about Neville Signham and his upbringing and his links to the CCP. an interesting point to make, and one that will be brought up again in future episodes, is his links to various South Asian entities. He's currently under investigation right now in Hyderabad, India, for pushing CCP influence in Indian elections. He
Now,
is also
this article also has a link between him and Huawei in China.
correct, yes. So he is actually a former senior executive for Huawei. If you go into the node right here, you'll see an image outline on the node up top. This was actually a record from the Brazilian archives that they had of his work he was actually doing in Brazil for Huawei. It includes his passport number in there as well. His history with Huawei is very well, extremely documented, and it's partially why he is actually under investigation by the Indian authorities right now because of his activities in Huawei. He is also the leader. He's the founder and creator of an organization called ThoughtWorks. ThoughtWorks, again, is another entity we will get into later on at a later date, because that is a much more vast web regarding a British PE firm called Apex Partners and ThoughtWorks and their work alongside Seth Rich and the DNC to create NGP-VAN and the National Voter ID database. Roy Signham is the guy who created that.
And so just so everybody understands, in 2019, the U.S. placed Huawei on what's called an entity list, which limits their ability to do business with American companies. And this was in response to a bunch of allegations, but specifically allegations related to Iran and helping Iran evade sanctions. Correct?
Correct, yes. If you actually go into the Beast archives, we can, Mr. Producer, if we can pull up that PDF document for Huawei's entity listing. So that is the OFAC. We'll come back to this because they are, again, a sanctioned entity on the OFAC. Anyways, I'll read to you from this article, from this document, actually, which lists Huawei as an entity. Part 1, why did Beast add Huawei to the entity list? Beast added Huawei Technologies Limited and many of its non-U.S. affiliates to the entity list effective May 16, 2019, on the basis of information that provided a reasonable basis to conclude that Huawei is engaged in activities that are contrary to U.S. national security or foreign policy interests, and its non-U.S. affiliates pose a significant risk of involvement in activities contrary to the national security of the United States. This included the alleged activities of the Department of Justice's public superseding indictment of Huawei, including alleged violations of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, conspiracy to violate INCA by providing prohibited financial services to Iran, and obstruction of justice in connection with the investigation of those alleged violations of U.S. sanctions. Effective August 19, 2019, Beast added another 46 non-U.S. affiliates of Huawei to the entity list because they also pose a significant risk of involvement in activities contrary to the national security or foreign policy interest of the United States. So what this document does, it describes in 2019 why U.S. affiliated companies are not allowed to do business with Huawei or any of their U.S.-based affiliates. So I think this document really is a good starting point to set the stage for today's discussion and why the 2020 election should have been declared illegitimate. due to the interference of Huawei, which will be discussed with roaming networks. And what is the relationship of roaming networks to Huawei? Roaming Networks, a Serbian-based company, has since 2013 been a business partner, a value-added business partner with Huawei. They've been doing an obscene amount of business together, and that's by their own admission. They produced this document, which they have since tried to erase, which discusses all their different clientele. You can see in here, roaming networks is the primary data center for Dominion voting systems. If we can pull up that PDF for roaming and Dominion listing, so we can show the audience that.
So this, let me before you go any further on this document, we did some digging on this document. This is a part of the document that dates back to the symposium, the cyber symposium in 2021. And I gave a presentation about this on the stage at Michael and Dell's symposium, correct?
Correct. Yes, you did. As a matter of fact, much of that presentation at the symposium originated from this document. Well, there were actually multiple different sets of this document, which were printed with variation in length. But this particular one was the one which we used for that presentation, which also included the bills of lading, might I add, kind of off topic here, but the bills of lading for Dominion voting systems, showing shipments from China, Taiwan, and Vietnam through CCP controlled entities. So that was all discussed at length in that presentation, which I believe is still online. But if we go through the rest of this document, if we can, please just scroll down. We'll see a list of all their different partners, many of whom are actually sanctioned by the U.S. anyways, their partners and their clients. For instance, one of their clients is a company called Meta, which is banned in the U.S. Another is the Bank of China. No explanation needed there. And another is an entity which we will hear about again called Hikvision, which provides facial services to the CCP authorities. These have been recorded and used at length against not only the Uyghurs, they've been used to subjugate the Uyghurs, but they have also been used in Palestine to track Palestinian movements. So they have a very extensive history. They have a very large footprint internationally, but they are still banned from doing any type of business with the U.S. You will also see Telecom Serbia right there on the screen. The former chief technology officer for roaming networks was actually an executive at Telecom Serbia. Just one of the many other connections.
And Telecom Serbia is connected to Ericsson, correct?
Correct, yeah, actually. So if you go down to the bottom of this document, you'll see that they're also partnered with Ericsson as well. Let's just go ahead and scroll down to the good stuff, so people can get an idea at it. You see, it's also connected to FirstNet as well. They guys basically built out a lot of the structures, a lot of the ICT structure for a lot of these entities. You'll see Huawei on the screen right now. Again, Telecom Serbia, a lot of these same entities keep reappearing.
Then you see other
Again,
companies like Cisco, which is a U.S.-based company.
Yeah, and you'll see also right there, if we can stop real quick, Mr. Producer, roaming group headquarters, Huawei, and then right under it, Bank of China, Huawei. They built these entities for these various different organizations, for these various different companies.
So they built data centers for these companies.
Correct. They built data centers all the way up to the towers in which they operate on, as well as the fiber systems that they use, which they're pivoting more towards right now. And we'll get into that a little bit later in today's episode. National Assembly of the Republic of Serbia, Sberbank, which is also another interesting entity as well, which has quite a bit of, let's say, overlap with some Central and Eastern European entities, which are also banned. If we look over here on the left, you'll see USA Griffith Foods. Now, they had actually added this one in there, but there is no record of Griffith Foods actually having done any type of business directly with roaming, but they did work with them through Cisco, as Joe alluded to earlier. Now, if we can just scroll down to page 23. Okay, right here. Stop, Mr. Producer. Page 22. Here we are. ICT infrastructure and data center. You'll see it. Meta right here, which is, again, banned U.S. entity. Right above that, you'll see Dominion voting. That is the implementation of the pure flash storage system at the primary data center for Dominion voting.
And the primary data center, this primary data center is in Serbia.
Correct, it is. It's in Belgrade, Serbia. As a matter of fact, it is Dominion Voting's office in Serbia is located basically a mile away from Roaming Network's office. It's essentially, it's separated by a public park. So if you were to walk directly through the park, you would be there in a matter of minutes. That's how close in proximity, both from an incorporation standpoint as well as a geographical standpoint, that these two entities are to each other. Roaming Networks is created by a guy named Nenad Kunec, who is he's considered a very corrupt Serbian oligarch, but their U.S. entity, alleged U.S. entity, has a whole body of work within the U.S. which could indicate that they're establishing a whole new system within the U.S. as well. And we'll get on into that a bit later on. So yeah, Mr. Producer, if we can just scroll down to the bottom so we can see who all these guys are partnered with.
You have Huawei.
Yeah. You have VMware, you have Nokia, and you have Ericsson. They're all partnered with Roaming Networks.
Now, this document was a publicly available online document in 2020,
Correct.
2021, correct?
Correct.
Is it currently a publicly available document?
No, it is not, and we are going to get to that in just a few notes here. You can see the rest of their affiliates down there, and if you look very closely down at the bottom, you will see that they are located in Belgrade, Serbia.
Yeah.
So again, we have a Serbian-based company which is partnered with Huawei, does business with Meta, Hikvision, the Bank of China, and which is also in charge of implementing all the storage protocols for Dominion voting.
So they call that 1 degree of separation, right?
Correct, 1 degree of separation, and we'll get into a few more of those connecting nodes probably in a future episode. One thing I'd like to point out to the audience is this map is incomplete. So I have yet to add Dominion founder, Chief Technology Officer Goran Obradović to the map yet, but he is another Serbian connection to it. He is one of the original patent holders for Dominion voting in Canada. His name is all over the Dominion patents in Canada, and we even have documentation of him presenting the architecture of Dominion voting systems in Belgrade in 2003. He was also the former president of the Canadian Serbian Association. And as we'll see, that's not the first time that a Serbian-Canadian connection to Dominion will rear its head, will surface throughout this investigation. So with that, we can get back to the mind map here.
You,
to go
so
down,
you-
we can
you-
see.
it's not publicly available. So we're going to talk about that a little bit further on.
Correct. Yes. So when we get down to that node, we'll see that. So if we go right here, you can actually see Huawei, the press release. If you click on this, the sanction, that will take you to Huawei's sanction. They have 4 entities listed. This is just one of them. And you'll see it's effective from 2021 and 2022. And again, this is just doubling down on the fact that they should not be doing business. Dominion Voting should not be doing business with them. And as such, I would posit that Dominion Voting is illegally conducting business in violation of these sanctions. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, so I do want to say this. Scott Lundbecker, who's the CEO and the founder of No Inc., purchased Dominion Voting Systems just less than a month ago. And in that purchase, there's something to be noted about him, is that he participated in the Kosovo elections in 2010. And so he has Serbian ties. And in 2017, best I can tell, he also was a part of Serbian. He has quite a few Serbian connections specifically.
Correct. Yeah, he did. And if I'm not mistaken, he did that as a Republican too.
Well, he said it's easy to say or something. I mean, that's pretty easy.
Well, I think at the end of this road on this mind map, I think a lot of people will see just how complicit the Republican Party's been in a lot of malicious and activity and malfeasance globally, and that their hands are not much cleaner than the Democrats. So, but time will tell. Let's just go through the evidence and draw our own conclusions from there. Mr. Producer, if we can go and click on the roaming networks node so we can go there. And again, this is just based off of the documentation which you presented at the Cyber Symposium. Now, to Joe's previous points, yes, they have completely erased the previous document which showed that they had any affiliation with Dominion Voting. You cannot find this document anywhere else online. It's not available. It's even been erased from the Wayback Machine. So
the Wayback Machine's also been completely wiped.
Yes, there's no mention of roaming networks on the Wayback Machine, and I can tell you they were wiped because I had archived it years ago. And you'll notice I said dot. Why does it say dot on there? It's because they actually changed their name. Roaming Networks even changed their name on all their incorporation documents beginning in 2023 and in 2024 to dot networks. They no longer go by roaming. So
let's ask a question about this because you're deep into it. But they're now dot networks. Did they sell the company in the United States as well, or did they bankrupt that company in the United States?
No, they just changed all the documents over to say dot. That was it. They literally just reincorporated as dot.
Yeah, but didn't roaming networks in the United States actually declare bankruptcy?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, all right.
But if we go over here, so roaming networks and dot, we're about to see. I mean, they're effectively just the same thing. They're foreign registered because they're also registered in Serbia. So that's a good point to add as well, and that's why I made the joke earlier about roaming networks USA LLC as being an independent entity. It's not. There's actually no record of incorporation for roaming networks in the U.S. So they are a foreign company, and they're not just foreign in the fact that they're registered from another state, but the fact that they're registered from another country as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're reviewing any documentation about roaming networks. Is a lot of it's actually originally in Serbian, and we'll get to that later because they did the same thing with these other companies as well. But if you see to the left of this, we'll just go back to Hikvision here. This article from Hikvision basically describes how they're being used to, let's say, subjugate the Palestinian population. And they're also used, coincidentally, against the Uyghurs as well. So within these 3 or 4 nodes alone, we've got one guy who's bankrolling the CCP's denial of Hikvision being used to subjugate the Uyghur population. But the companies which he does business with are the ones who are actually providing that same surveillance equipment to the Chinese Communist Party, among other people, to conduct said surveillance. So it just really goes to show you how transactional and hypocritical these people are. But with that, so if we go over to the right, actually, of roaming networks and dot, I included this. This is the ISO certification. If we go over to the right, Mr. Producer. So you'll see that they're actually certified, and I included this because I wanted to show that their whole infrastructural architecture is based out of Serbia. To the point where they even have to get their certifications from Serbian entities. In this case, the CKPI. If you'll see the node, it's the name is spelled out there. I'm not even going to attempt to say that because I do not speak Serbian. Okay, so if we move on past the ISO, let's go down to Nikola Petrovic. He is currently listed as the CEO of roaming/dot networks USA. And you'll see this interview here. And you can translate this interview from Serbian into English. And you'll learn a lot about their footprint and their setup within the United States.
Okay.
So if anyone has interest.
So just so you know, Nikola Petrovic, so in 2023, Roaming Networks USA filed bankruptcy in the Illinois court. Here's the document.
Okay, yeah, I think I remember seeing something about this now, but
and remember, if you look at Chicago Heights and that address, that was the warehouse address that in 2020
we went to it. No one was there.
No, we went there, and it was above a. It was above a building that did wiring.
Yeah.
But there was no one in Roaming Networks. And when I asked the guy downstairs, it was Roaming Networks upstairs, he looked at me with 3 heads and said, "No, there's nobody there. There's no company like that here."
Yeah, and they've got kind of a weird model that you'll see with fiber and tower equipment.
Yeah.
You'll see it in reciprocity throughout the rest of this presentation. Sorry, not in reciprocity. You'll see it repeatedly throughout the rest of this discussion. So if we go over here, we look at Nikola Petrovic. He's the listed roaming.networks USA CEO. And this is also the same on his LinkedIn. He still has that publicly available. It's the same as well on his Rocket Reach, and every other entity, database out there has him listed as being the CEO. It also has him listed as the CEO of Apex Fiber Solutions, which look at over here. If we click on this node, you can actually see the Florida incorporation in these names on these incorporation documents. You will see repeatedly throughout throughout the rest of this presentation as well. In total, between these names you see up here, between these people on this mind map, there are over 20 corporations which are affiliated with, and most of them don't have anything at all to do with the telecom industry. As a matter of fact, Apex Fiber Solutions is effectively the only one. Apex Fiber Solutions. The keynote there being Nikola Petrovic. Again, a Serbian name. He's a Serbian national. But if we look at the address for Apex Fiber Solutions below, we'll see that it intersects with a guy named Bojan Delibasic. So if we click on Bojan over here, if we click on Bojan Delibasic on the background on the image node, on the node for the incorporation paperwork form, you'll actually see Bojan is the CEO, the corporate officer actually of multiple different entities: True Dispatch, MG Truck Center, Apex Fiber Solutions Group, AFS Equipment, as well as Alina Holdings. And we'll get down to Alina Holdings here in just a moment. Now, if you click on the link actually for the node, this will actually take you to a real estate transaction detail where he sold his house in Florida for $5.1 million. Now, the address for that house is 13999 Old Cutler Road in Florida. So that's how we know these are also his incorporated entities up here. Again, it's just multiple data points pointing in one vector. So,
and then you also have a you also have a company called Maybach, right?
correct.
It's a
Yes,
very
we will
large
be.
trucking company.
Correct, it is. It's a very large trucking company which has its primary areas of operation in Florida, South Florida specifically, in the area of Fort Lauderdale, in Chicago, in the surrounding areas of Chicago, as well as Canada.
So if you wanted to ship ballots, if you wanted to ship paper, if you wanted to ship anything, and you owned that system and you were tied to roaming networks, which is tied to Dominion, you could run a complete criminal enterprise and no one would know about it.
Correct. Yeah. Theoretically, yes. And these are not shell corporations, might I add. There are multiple assets listed to all these companies. And we'll get down to that when we get to looking at Maybach. But I wanted to go back up here to 1384 Madeline Lane. And this is just really the physical structure, which shares a lot of incorporated commonalities with these different entities. For instance, Apex, as a matter of fact, if you even go onto Apex's website, it'll show their address is 1384 Madeline Line. The same is true with Maybach International Group, which there are actually multiple articles talking about how they broke ground on their facility down there. So again, these are all connected literally by incorporation, using the same corporate officers, as well as by the same locations. So they have geophysical proximity as well. But yeah, if we go down to 1384, you just type in that address and you'll see multiple different entities are registered out of there. And there are a lot of Serbian names affiliated with those entities. The one in the icon is Nene Balak. He has multiple commercial trucking entities registered to his name, Balak Trucking, actually. So does Nikola Petrovic. There's actually a Petrovic Trucking as well. So this is kind of the model that they're all using. in the U.S. And I should point out too that all of these guys, all these people are from the same city in Serbia. They're from Novi Sad, Serbia, which we'll get to in a minute. So if we go down here to Nenad Kudic, this was actually a huge data point for being able to verify that, again, these guys are from Novi Sad, Serbia. If we look over here on the right, this was actually from a service which was sent to him from Florida's attorney from Ventura, Florida.
For a divorce, right? Divorce agreement.
For a divorce, yep. He divorced his wife, Petra. And they actually served him via email to an email address located in Novi Sad, Republic of Serbia. So again, that was just another data point to help connect a lot of these. But really the big gold mine with all of this came from Maybach International Group. So Mr. Producer, if we go on to Maybach International Group, you'll see the image icon is written in Serbian. This is their 2016 incorporation for an entity called MIG-RS, MIG, Maybach International Group, RS, Republic of Serbia. And George Kulcic, who we'll be discussing also in this presentation.
So you have Dominion that is in the United States and Canada with a sophisticated group of companies, shell companies, different addresses. Then you have the connection to Serbia where they have Dominion in Serbia. They have a data center in Serbia. So they have operations in Serbia. They have their coders in Serbia. It's not that far long ago that we had the massive conflict in Kosovo. Serbia. Right?
Correct. And I have I have my theories about what transpired there as well with Eric Rosenbach and General Petraeus.
They're using the same sophisticated system in order to go undetected by basically diluting out and creating these same points, but basically right next door to each other.
In this case, they're even in the same building in some of these cases. And most of these are shell companies, but not all of them. And we'll see what I mean by that, about the assets actually attached to them when we get down to Panda truck sales, which again provided us another huge data point. As a matter of fact, we can just go ahead and get down to Panda truck sales directly right now. So in this document, these were actually part of the incorporation documents in the state of Florida, but I found some transactions where Panda Truck Sales had actually sold vehicles or transferred vehicles over to Maybach International Group. And they did it with all three of these people basically being on the signature line. RERUN-Joe, Hornacek, or Ornacek. There's about 3 different spelling variations of that name, which is very common. A lot of foreigners do that. You'll see some variation the way they spell their name or even pronounce their name. But again, Nenad Kudic was also on here as well as again another one, Nenad Balak, who was on some previous incorporation documents, which we had as well. You'll see they're kind of spread out all over the place. They have Miami, they have Chicago, they have DePlain, Illinois. There was one address in New Mexico as well. But with that, I think we can go ahead and come over here to, let's go over here to RERUN-Joe Hornak now, Mr. Producer. If we click on that, we'll actually see that she is on the documentation for Panda Truck Sales as well as Maybach as well. And they also use the same Fort Lauderdale address on a lot of these documents too. That's 6301 Powerline Road. You'll see a lot of intersectionality with other incorporations. Again, like I said, these guys, they have basically over 20, but less than 30 corporate affiliations. And now if we go over here to the left, you'll see Alina Holdings LLC. This was actually another big data point when I found these incorporation documents, because it gave me one name in particular, which I had only been able to find on one or two other documents, and that is Dorde Kuljic. Dorde is effectively the founder, the creator of Maybach International Group. And as a matter of fact, Kuljic's name is on that incorporation document for Maybach International Group, which I showed earlier back in 2016. He goes by the nickname, the moniker of George, and his email is literally george@maybachglobal.com, one of his many aliases. So this is Alina Holdings, in which they all also share ownership in as well. There was another entity affiliated with them called CKD, and I believe that was a reference to Kuljic, and Dalibasic Holdings, which was also registered out of Florida. That is an example of one of the shell companies they had initially, which became, which effectively gave birth to Maybach Group. Maybach's first U.S. presence actually appeared as Maybach Capital. And again, all these guys are out of Novi Sad, Serbia. So, Mr. Producer, if we go down to Dorde Kuljic and click on his name, we'll be able to find out a little bit more about him as well. So he was the founder of the Maybach International Group. He's the son of a Serbian transportation oligarch. He attended primary school in Switzerland to the tune of about $60K a year for room and board before moving to NYC in the 2010s. He dated for 5 years a woman named Anastasia Raznatovic, who is a famous singer in Serbia. She's also the daughter of a famous singer. And we'll get to her father in just a second, and that will kind of round this out for today's presentation. We'll bring it back home to Signham afterwards, but want to include this in here as well because of if anyone had questions as to whether or not these guys were part of some organized crime or affiliated with organized crime in some way. Yes, they are. As a matter of fact, and Anastasia is really a key link to that. I should also note that he is no longer dating Anastasia, but they do share multiple residences still, even though he's married to a woman he met through Anastasia, and they now have 2 kids and live in New York City. So if we click on Anastasia's node, you'll see she's the singer of a very famous Serbian singer named Cheka. And she's also the daughter of a guy named Zeljo Arkan Raznatovic. Now, the reason I know that they were together, because if we click on the link, this will give you a whole episode, like a whole story about how they're all connected. If you go and you look at George's link as well, you'll see, well, it's not there anymore, but that's interesting. Anyways, you'll see up here in the picture, the image, no picture, that you have George here on the right, the middle is Anastasia, and on the left is Cheka. Mr. Producer, if you can pull that one up for Anastasia. Yes, so on the right you have George Kuljic, and there's not an actual photo of him which existed prior to 2016. And this is just an article from the Mirror discussing Anastasia and her family and who her father was, who we'll go with at the end here next.
This is the Archon.
Yeah, this is Archon's daughter, and they're discussing how she, still lives like the lavish lifestyle over in Belgrade, and she has. So George Kuljic, even though he's basically spent a lot of years in America, he still has a huge, famous kind of cultish following in Serbia. But there isn't a photo of him online basically prior to 2015, 2016. Part of that was probably because he was living mostly in the U.S., but also because of his father's connections. Novi Sad, Serbia is actually really the hub of organized crime in Serbia. And that brings us to Archon. And we'll end it there with him. But let's click on Archon. Again, you'll see the photo of her, but within the encyclopedia, within the link there, if we click that, it will just give you a bit of a background as to who he was. He was a Yugoslav warlord. He was accused of and actually convicted of ethnic cleansing, as well as gun running, extortion, organized crime. One interesting characteristic of Serbian football is that almost all the teams are owned either directly or indirectly by organized crime. And Arkin was no exception, as he owned his own team as well. But he was considered a henchman for Slobodan Milosevic and was a keynote in all forms of corruption throughout Yugoslavia and afterwards, all the way up until when he was assassinated in 2000. So again, when we look at this from a 30,000-foot view, you have a Yugoslav warlord whose daughter was dating the business associate of the guy who's running Roaming Networks USA, which is connected to Dominion voting.
And Dominion voting being also connected to Huawei, connected to, and if you look back and you look at the way that they've done things, even dating back to Smartmatic days when they owned Sequoia voting systems, and you pull, and I know we're not going to get to it today in this, and as we start putting these different pieces together, I want you guys to know that they'll say, oh, that they're so what, they're connected. That doesn't mean they did anything wrong. Yeah, it does, actually. It does.
Yeah, and for all the naysayers who say that that connection is just circumstantial, no, it's not. Smartmatic and Dominion are both listed as creditors to Sequoia voting in Sequoia's bankruptcy proceedings.
And the Sequoia bankruptcy, the interesting part about the Sequoia bankruptcy specifically is that intellectual property was retained by Sequoia, and Smartmatic and Dominion both gained in the bankruptcy access and use of that proprietary information and IP.
Correct.
So you and then we're going to get in later to ES&S and its connection. So all of the system architecture in every system is based off the same fraudulent systems that allow for them to steal elections across the country.
Yeah, and and we'll get into the British role later with Apex Partners, but it's also worth noting that NCC Group now holds in their portfolio as a third-party escrow agent, Dominion Voting and ES&S. So the source code for Dominion Voting and ES&S are controlled in escrow by a British defense firm called NCC Group. But anyways, just to kind of round this out and bring it back, next we're going to be pivoting to other connections, which Neville Signham has. So on one side we have ThoughtWorks and the technological aspect of it, but on the other side we have the activist aspect of it, and he is the founder and the funder for the Party for Socialism and Liberation. He's also married to Alicia T. Signham Goodwin, who actually sits on the board of the DSA New York City Steering Committee along one Zohran Mamdani, who we will also discuss at length in future episodes. So
who's also connected to Antifa, who's also connected to, to the Muslim Brotherhood. And this is all documented. It is a sophisticated web of people. It's organized crime.
It is. And one thing to understand about organized crime is, the 90-10 rule, as I allude to, 90% good or legitimate, so they come under the 10% illegitimate. And these are no different. But yeah, he actually, while he was at Bowdoin University, he actually wrote an article effectively professing his love for the Muslim Brotherhood and how when Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood fell while he was in Egypt under the Muslim Brotherhood rule, he felt he had to leave the country because he couldn't wear his beard. He felt he had to shave his beard because he would be targeted for being a Muslim Brotherhood supporter, for being what we call Ikhwan. So, with that, I think we'll leave that all for future episodes. I think we're probably reaching the point of information saturation for the viewers out there. So, let's let them fester and kind of ponder some of the information presented in this episode before moving on.
Here's a question for you. Are we going to be able to put the documents, roaming network documents, and all the things we have, the mind map, is that accessible so people can get ahead of this if they want to?
Well, the mind map is publicly available. Now, not everyone has access to it. They can't edit it, obviously, but it is publicly accessible.
Do we want to tell people
roaming
where they can find that, or should we hold off on that while we're talking right now?
I honestly, it could just be found. It's a Graph Commons. It's a publicly available tool. It's a great tool, especially if you're just looking for something quick and just lay everything out. The notes I have, the information contained in that mind map is incomplete. That mind map is going to get much bigger, much deeper, but I think it's good that we start on presenting this information publicly right now at this point, so that way we can kind of work people into who some of these actors are. You were going to hear a lot of the same names come up repeatedly. Again, like I said, Neville Signham. How is this guy who is implicated in interference in South Asian politics? How is he connected to Seth Rich and the DNC and Zohran Mamdani? He's a central node in all of these things. So I think when we look at things through a more transactional layer, and that all this occurs in a much more anarchic sense than what people say probably prejudiciously surmise, that's when you can begin to really connect a lot more dots and see a lot more behavior, which you would expect from criminals. So with that,
So let me just ask you one more question before we wrap up. Okay. There's a central piece to this dating back to 2021. I interviewed a guy that was tied to Fox IT, which is a CIA front. None of this could exist without the CIA. None of this. There's absolutely no way possible that the CIA doesn't know, and by extension, in large part, the intelligence community of the United States would not know what you know about all of these people in this connection. How would it get past them if they weren't complicit in this?
So it's interesting you mentioned that, because I've spoken with people who have experience, let's just say, connections to the IC community, and the general consensus is that they either turn a blind eye to something like roaming networks, or roaming networks is what they refer to as an OGA, which is other government activity.
Yeah.
An interesting point about Fox IT that you mentioned, because again, we have those payment receipts for Fox IT. Fox IT is owned by NCC Group, that escrow company I just recently mentioned, which holds the escrow accounts for Dominion Voting in the SNS. They too own Fox IT.
And that's a known.
Okay.
What's that?
That's publicly available information. They actually just recently acquired Iron Mountain Eagle property, which held SNS's source code. And the reason I know that is because it's listed inside of their Vancouver RFP, when they were bidding for the elections in Vancouver. So these are all publicly available documents. You just have to know where to find them, and that's where the open source angle comes into all this. But that's also why I wanted to include a lot of the links within the mind map itself, within the graph.
So you can do your own research, and it can take you down a rabbit hole pretty quick.
Well, yeah, I mean, the CIA is listed on the mind map. They have a very extensive involvement in some, just say, seedy activity. But there's probably the biggest factor in all of this, which I found, was the microfinance angle. And we'll be able to get into that in the future, because that's basically how they launder everything now, is through microfinancing schemes.
Say it.
I won't be able to. Oh, I mean, at the onset of the episode, I discussed a guy named Muhammad Yunus. He runs a microfinancing institute in Bangladesh, and it has a not-profit in the U.S. called Grameen America, which for a period of time was essentially run by Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, Isabel Maxwell, who was a longtime advisor to Yunus, and talking about another corporate entity, which I mentioned at the onset of the broadcast, Apex Partners. She is actually a member of the business development committee for Apex Partners, which owns Signham Slot Works. They purchased it in 2017. So again, you kind of see how all this is related in a sense. And again, there will just be more connections made. I understand it's probably a lot right now for people to go from one thing to another. How did we get from 9/11 to Bangladesh to talking about organized crime in Serbia's connections to roaming networks? It's all related. It's all connected when you just look at the relationship science aspect of everything. And that's not to sound like a black pill.
Yeah, I mean, you have a guy that runs a trucking company that also runs. You look at the mechanisms that are necessary in order to steal elections and to influence operations related to elections, whether it's the dominions of the world or, I mean, once you have access to all the information related to that, it becomes really easy to manipulate and to steal elections. Very, very easy.
But that's also, going back to Marco Polo and Garrett's work product. That phone call from Hunter Biden with Greg Penner, who is basically CEO of Walmart, discussing how they can deliver ballots, is rather basically rig the election for Hunter's daddy. It's rather indicative of their behavior. And again, like you said, having a trucking company, from Canada to Illinois down to Florida, covering the whole eastern seaboard. That is a very valuable asset if you want to engage in illicit behavior. So,
all right,
again,
we're gonna do more on this. We're gonna end it on here for this. We'll do the second episode this coming week, second iteration, second segment this coming week, and in that we'll tie back to the Clinton Foundation, politicians, and how does it all play a part? And what's happening in New York, what's happened in New Jersey, and across the country, the things that we could see, even what's happening in California, which is even a bigger problem all by itself. B, thanks for joining us today, and I look forward to next week as well.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And to your audience, not used to doing stuff like this, so pardon the hiccups. This is just a new experience and definitely something unique and never really done before. So bear with us as we iron everything out. I appreciate it.
It's a lot, though. And forensically, once you start putting it together, it becomes very, very clear what's happening next. All right,
correct. I agree. All right.
God bless you. Thank you for
you.
doing the work that you do, and we'll see you again next week.
All right. God bless you guys, man.
All right. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about a lot of this stuff, and we have a list of all of these URLs, and that ties us back to some information related to elections, even stuff related to John Polis at Dominion Voting Systems, some of the private equity firms and the people that work within those private equity firms at Staple Street Capital, how that relates to the Carlyle Group related to some of the things we're talking about with Huawei, Hikvision, and roaming networks, and how those people then correlate and are connected to Nikola Petrovich and some of the other people like that are from Serbia. So you have the Serbia connection, you have an undeniable Ukrainian connection, you have the U.S. connection, and you have all these different things that are happening that surround our elections. And we haven't even started talking about the Clinton Foundation, the connection to Republican congressmen who, frankly, were behind the stealing of the election just as much as the Democrats over the last 25 years. So a lot of stuff to go over. I want you to pay attention to, we tried to stay away from certain aspects of people because it's going to make more sense when we start dragging in some of the other organizations that are out there tied to Antifa, tied to Mamdani, tied to the Muslim Brotherhood, and even tied to Israel.
If you would like to know more information about this presentation, please feel free to follow us on X at CounterDawa, as well as our website, counterdawa.com.
Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
The Clinton Foundation, AIPAC's partners, the Islamic Circle of North America, Osama bin Laden, Grameen America, Shore Bank. While all of these might seem as if they're random, unconnected entities, what if in fact they were all connected?
And the true believer knows that none of this is in vain, that this is all jihad, that this is all ibadah, and that this is all counted for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the conversation of doxing, the conversation of getting arrested and suspended, I think it's time for Muslims to start to say, all right, so what? Do what you want. I'm gonna do what I gotta do, because it's about time to do that. And I know everybody has their own families and has an education and everything. It's just a question. We don't want to get doxxed, and we don't want to get suspended, and we don't want to get arrested. How gangsta are you? That's just my question. How much are you willing to do it? And I know everyone has their own risk levels, but at the end of the day, that's a question to ask ourselves. How committed am I to this? To what extent of my personal material gains am I willing to sacrifice for this bigger noble cause? And subhanAllah, I truly believe that when your heart is in the right place, if you get suspended, if you get doxxed, because it's bound to happen when you're doing a righteous cause and when you're doing something for the sake of Allah here in the West, it will never ever be in vain. And the true believer does not fear that, because the true believer knows that the akhirah is a promise.
In sum, Maududdi's text is a call for complete destruction and then rebuilding of the existing social order. It is led by a revolutionary party of pious Muslims. The sole purpose of jihad is to wipe out un-Islamic norms and customs and finally establish an Islamic state devoid of nationalism or any other form of un-Islamic concepts. It is irrelevant to think about defensive or offensive jihad, as the Islamic revolution will be universal. It demands that all people subject to Islam's rule, but it is framed as a liberation, not as a subjugation.
Today we're going to continue our series with B as we dissect the radical web that infiltrated our cities and corrupting our youth. What you just heard is the same thing that drove radicals to war in the Middle East. It was the same playbook in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Egypt, Libya, Chad, Sudan. Much of this tied back to the CIA influences in the United States. The attachments of ANTIFA, the Democratic Socialists of America, and now they're not hiding. Reminds me of what happened in 2020 when we had COVID. Everything would be revealed. And what opened up, we started figuring out that they were grooming our children in schools, indoctrinating our children. Parents had no idea why they were losing their kids in secondary education. They hadn't even gone to college yet, and they were being turned into weirdos. And it didn't happen overnight. They just hid it from us in plain sight. So I'm going to welcome B back to the show. He's going to go over a lot of things with you. But I want you to sit down, hold on tight, because what we're about to talk about ties back in all these organizations that hide inside of our country, do commerce and basically launder money. It's a huge cartel of organized crime. And it includes Serbia, Pakistan, the United States, Canada. It's a global conspiracy to corrupt and destroy the United States of America. So B, welcome to the show.
Hey Joe, thanks for having me back, man. Couldn't have said it better myself with your introduction.
So let me go through a couple things that we talked about before.
Okay.
That was Mamdani's aide, which is tied to Alicia Signham, the name that you definitely need to know. I think we're going to talk about Alicia today. Zohran Mamdani's rise and how it happened, because if you look back at what he's accomplished, it's a little to do with nothing. Like, hasn't accomplished anything. And then we can see how it's connected to the Socialists and Liberation, the PSL, Muslim Democratic Club of New York, and peeling back all these layers, we start to get to even the organizations tied to, lawfare organizations, even the UCLA or the ACLU. So walk us through this.
Well, today I'm actually kind of happy we're discussing Mamdani, given his visit. But he is a puppet who was largely backed by Linda Sarsour. And we'll eventually get into her aspect of this later. But I just wanted to focus on Mamdani himself and go over some of the endorsements that he has had, both those from the Islamic Circle of North America as well as the Muslim Democratic Club of New York, which is actually Linda Sarsour's organization. if we go into the node, we can actually see a lot of the funding that he received through Empower Action, the Muslim American Society of New York, the Indian American Impact, which is actually, in contrast to the name, it is very friendly to the ISI, and extremist jihadist camp, as well as the Yemeni American Merchants Association. One interesting point I would also like to make is that while Zohran Mamdani was at Bowdoin College, he actually established the Students for Justice in Palestine chapter. Now, SJP actually has a whole slew of radical ties to Hamas via their funding mechanisms. So again, this is, you'll see it right there, how it all kind of interconnects. But he was actually funded by some of these same entities, which are known, as we now know, through various different lawsuits or intelligence revelations, to include open source and closed source as well, that these entities are funding Hamas, Hezbollah, et cetera, et cetera. I could go into what those entities are, but the fact of the matter is it's pretty endless. So we'll get back to that when we touch on the Students for Justice in Palestine. But you'll notice on here at the top, one of the biggest endorsements he got was from a guy named Khan, Mr. Khan. Khan was actually a convicted war criminal who led the New York chapter of the Islamic Circle of North America. Now, why was he a convicted war criminal? We have to go back to the 1971 Bangladesh War, and we will do that at a future date. But he is just one of a number of leaders who were convicted of various different war crimes, who then immigrated to the United States, or their families immigrated to the United States, and they have very close affiliations with an organization we will touch on in the future called the Islamic Circle of North America. Now, this guy, he personally campaigned and endorsed Zohran Mamdani, and he was actually a member of the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is, again, the political party in South Asia that we are going to discuss in great length. As a matter of fact, the opening text, which I read from, comes from the Pakistan Journal of History and Culture. It is the 39th edition of 2018. And that was written, it references a guy named Maududi. Maududi is the one who created the Jamaat-e-Islami going all the way back to 1940. And I think in the future, a lot of people will be very interested in hearing where his family ended up. But with that, let's just get back to some of Mamdani's other connections. One in particular which sticks out is, you'll see the Democratic Socialists of America New York Steering Committee. If we click on that, we can actually bring us up. This is actually a screenshot of the entirety of the committee, which he sits on alongside Alicia T. Signham Goodwin, who is the niece of Roy Neville Signham. So if we go over here, we can actually see on Democratic Socialists of America, the steering committee, how these people actually work in regards to ANTIFA. I believe this article does a great job at summarizing their relationship and how they intertwine. So it's just a really good point, really good informational point for people to be able to reference if they want to understand how these entities all cooperate and work together. So sitting alongside Mamdani on the Democratic Socialists of America New York Steering Committee is Alicia T. Signham Goodwin, who is the niece of Roy Signham, who we discussed in great depth last week. Now, Mr. Signham is currently under investigation by the Indian authorities for pushing CCP propaganda. It's important for us to remember he is a former Huawei executive who also created ThoughtWorks, which is essentially a tool of the DNC. That is Roy Signham, Alicia T. Signham Goodwin's uncle. But let's talk more about what the Singhams actually do on the activist side as opposed to the technological side. And if we go to the node and we click on the link, it'll take us to a press release from the House Committee of Natural Resources. And this is from our very own congressional record. It says, quote, Code Pink regularly engages in lobbying, protests, and extensive advocacy efforts regarding environmental and energy issues, particularly as it relates to America's national security infrastructure. Code Pink also declares that the United States must downsize our military budget to fight climate change. While these activities alone may be cause for disagreement, the committee is concerned with Code Pink's funding arrangements, potential funding by foreign nationals, and purported connections with the CCP. The CCP nonprofit influence machine reportedly now extends to Code Pink. On August 5th, 2023, the New York Times reported that Code Pink is part of a lavishly funded influence campaign that works closely with the Chinese government media machine to promote the agenda of the CCP. Code Pink is purportedly funded by Neville Roy Signham, a self-proclaimed socialist and current benefactor of far-left causes who is now based in Shanghai, China. Photos show Mr. Signham regularly meeting with officials from the CCP, including at CCP propaganda forums. And so with that, you can read the rest for yourself as it's a publicly available document. With that, it definitively establishes the connection between the activist left in the United States and the CCP, as well as our voting machine apparatus. But if we go forward into his philanthropic activities, we'll find that he was actually the founder of an entity called the Party for Socialism and Liberation, known as the PSL. Now, if we click on the link, which is provided to us in the node, it'll take us to this report from the Oversight Project, which describes in great depth the No Kings protest movement. And if we go down here, we can see how all this is kind of connected together, how it all interweaves in between the previously mentioned SJP, Social Justice for Palestine, as well as the PSL and the DSA, as well as ANTIFA. Now, if we scroll down to the page beyond that, we get a bit of a background about the PSL and why it was formed. The PSL espouses Marxist-Lenin ideology and splintered from the Workers' World Party in 2004. PSL's founder, Gloria La Riva, has clearly laid out PSL's claims. We are communists. We believe in a society where capitalism does not exist in any way, where there is a socialist movement in the world, beginning with the US. And this is the organization which was funded by Mr. Signham. And for the Party for Socialism and Liberation, if you look at the node, you'll see in the image that they are part of a network which connects them to the U.S. Palestinian Community Network. And they work in large part with the SJP as well as ICNA for the BDS movement. Now, if we come down to the Muslim Democratic Club of New York node, we'll begin to connect some of these more theocratic nodes. Their end game is to establish an Islamic caliphate without any national definition. And when you read a lot of the work from Maududi, which is still being published and printed today through his family, you'll find that, again, world revolution is their end game. He was very inspired by European fascism and Marx as well. You'll find a lot of references to Marx throughout his work. So I think this is a worldwide revolution with an Islamist flair to it. Are all Muslims associated with this or guilty of partaking in this? No, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, you'll find that some of these entities, which we'll be discussing in this series, are actually banned in a lot of Arabic countries, particularly within the Gulf region. So no, not all of them are complicit. However, the entities within the U.S. are definitely of grave concern.
Okay, so many of the organizations are banned in Muslim countries, yet we see a reluctance from Arab nations to accept Muslim and Arab refugees, while Europe and America absorb the majority. Why do Arab countries avoid taking it on their own? And what drives the funneling of Muslims to Western nations instead?
Well, I think there's a lot of dynamics involved in that. More so, they are very regimented in the number of citizens they allow, but they do still take in a large degree of immigrants. For instance, Kuwait, the largest diaspora in Kuwait by far is the Bengali population, Bangladesh. So it's not to say that they don't take them in. They are just very strict, controlled, and regimented about who they do accept. This is in stark contrast to U.S. and Western policy, which just has more than an open door policy. It's a roll out the red carpet and everyone come here. And when you think about it contextually, it is probably the most prolific human trafficking operation in history at any point in time, far beyond, the Dutch Atlantic slave trade, any of that. The amount of people being imported, and I say imported into the West, is magnanimous. It's incredible.
Do you think they found a loophole or a weakness that allows them to use Christianity against itself? In other words, make you feel guilty here in America? And, we have this complex. So it's either Muslims from different countries, or even, let's specifically talk about Somalia. And what made us so weak-natured towards people that have come here and frankly have despised us? While they're here with us, they've despised us.
It's a good question, and I think a lot of it has to do with NGO, IGO funding, as well as their close lineage to Europe. Remember, a lot of African nations were European colonies, not even but 125 years ago, 1904, the scramble for Africa. Somalia in particular, with Italy. So I think that there is a convenience for Western entities with nefarious agendas to be able to abuse that system. And because they know no one else is going to take them. They know they don't have many options. But what I will say that they do in these countries, in these African countries, and I can say this anecdotally, actually, they very well advertise illegal immigration. And they sell it. Like, you're going to arrive to the West and you'll be taken care of for life. You'll never have to do anything. Does that go for all immigrants? No, I think that's what a lot of the illegal ones tend to think, but I think most of the legal ones understand that there's a process and there is, some would call it a social contract. There's many different ways to interpret that. But I think for what we are seeing in the US, there is a very nefarious agenda behind it. And a lot of it has to do, in my opinion, with manipulating the census, as we're seeing down in California. But if you go and you read a lot of like their teachings going back, especially in Mamdani, he created this concept of theodemocracy. It's very kind of Fabian socialist in that instead of having it doesn't condone a direct revolution, but rather it surmises that maybe there are multiple different ways for people to be able to overtake a society. And one of those was his argument that the democratic process should be used so that way they can incrementally completely impose an Islamic society and Islamic caliphate. And once they have that, then anything democratic or un-Western or un-Islamic will then be disbanded. Again, these are their own words. I'm not, I didn't even paraphrase when I read that, by the way, at the beginning of the show. So I think it's important that we read a lot of what people our enemies write and that we take them at their word for it. And it's important for us to note before going on any further, that the Muslim Democratic Club of New York was actually co-founded, started by Linda Sarsour. In case you're unfamiliar with her, she is very much active within the progressive and activist realms. She is a member of the CARE, as well as a frequent speaker, frequent associate of various different ICNA entities, which we will be getting into at a later date. But one thing it's important for us to remember is funding when it comes to candidates. And while much could be made about the progressive apparatus, which funded Mamdani, they by far were not the most prolific. The biggest PACs behind him were actually under control of various different Islamic organizations. And don't take my word for it. With that, we can watch her own statement confessing to this.
Right now, I'm a little more quiet because I'm on the quiet side of this race, but I'm going to tell you that once November 4th comes around, I will tell the story. The story is not just, that it's random that Zohran ascended to this place. It is our Muslim American communities. And I'll also say that it's Muslim money. The PACs that have supported Zohran, or a particular PAC that has supported Zohran, is probably over 80% of Muslim American donors in this country, high net donors, grassroots donors. And I want to make the point that the Unity and Justice Fund PAC, which is the CARE Super PAC, was the largest institutional donor to the pro-Zohran PAC in New York.
And there you had it. She said it herself. And as I had previously mentioned, she is a frequent guest and associate of ICNA. ICNA is an organization which was founded as an offshoot of the Muslim Student Association, and basically effectively serves as a centralized umbrella for everything regarding Muslim Islamic entities within the United States. Now, their foundation, who started them and who controls them, will be discussed in the next episodes. So with that, I think we can go ahead and review mentally what we've gone over today, and anticipate future episodes discussing some of the bigger power players involved in all this network, to include the Islamic Socialists of North America and their foundation with Jamaat-e-Islami.
How long do you think this plan's been going on?
Do you think it's like recent, or do you think they sped it up and it's been like this slow grind since 9/11? Do you think it's something that just happened, or do you think they've been planning this for decades?
What's interesting, you mentioned that the Emir for Jabhat Islami actually met with the head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee 11 months before 9/11 even happened. And this is when they have been banned on and off politically in various different countries. Pakistan has the Jamaat Islami Pakistan. There is the JEI in Bangladesh, which is currently in power after last year's coup. And there's the Jamaat Islami Hind in India. And there's Jamaat Islami Jammu and Kashmir, which is a designated terrorist entity. All these organizations, in one way or another, have basically been around since the 70s and the 80s. With ICNA in particular, it's been around since the 70s. But this is a generational plan very much. And I think in future discussions, when we go over some of the people who are involved with ICNA and with Jamaat Islami and various different organizations, we'll see that this is quite literally a generational family affair.
And can you pinpoint the specific time when they started to infiltrate America? Was it in the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, the 80s? And why were we so ignorant about it? How could we have all this happen and not even know it was happening?
Yeah, that's when they began, but they really proliferated in the 1990s and the 2000s. For anyone who's unfamiliar, I implore them to familiarize themselves with the Holy Land Foundation. But as we saw with the 1993 WTC bombing, they already had quite an apparatus in place. And by the way, I should also mention that Siraj Wahhaj, a New York-based imam, who was an unindicted co-conspirator for the 1993 bombing, was also photographed with Mamdani in his campaigning. There's a famous photograph of him with Siraj Wahhaj. And it's also important to note that Mamdani actually met with members of ICNA as well directly. So he's definitely got an apparatus behind him, but it's not this progressive one. He's not some Soros puppeteer, even though he does have a very close relationship with Soros. But this over here with ICNA is the entity which nobody talks about. And by contrast, it's actually quite odd because Jamaat has actually disappeared from the scrutiny of the security services. And I think in future episodes, we'll be able to dive into that in a greater detail. And I think a lot of that is because of people they've placed in power over generations and the power they have. These are incredibly powerful people. These are immensely powerful people, and they have the entirety of Pakistan, Qatar, Turkey, China, backing them, basically. There is a bit of a conflict that they have with some Saudi elements, and but that is an entirely different conversation that I don't think most people would really probably even care about hearing. It's quite boring, but it's fascinating to me. Anyways, I would say probably in the 1990s is when this really took off. 1980s with the fourth wave of terrorism going into the 1990s, and especially proliferating after 9/11. Let me make one comment about Mamdani. While he was at Bowdoin and he was writing, he wrote an article about his time in Egypt when the Muslim Brotherhood under Morsi was in power. And he talked about how when Morsi was removed from power and the Muslim Brotherhood was essentially thrown out of the country, he went through a period of self-exile. He felt he had to leave because he could no longer proudly wear his beard as a Muslim. And these are his own words. He literally put it into a printed article, which you can still find in Bowdoin's archives. So that is who he is. He is a rabid fanatic of the Muslim Brotherhood. And if anyone's interested, you can read the article. They can read the article for themselves.
You know, the thing that we have to really look at is the infiltration that we face in every part of our society. So you have Mamdani, Linda Sarsour, the DSA steering committee, the PSL, ANTIFA, the Muslim Democratic Club, the Democratic Socialists of America. These aren't random names. This is an organizational chart of a slow motion takeover happening under your noses. They're in your school councils, they're in your school boards, they're training the next generation to hate the country and they gave them everything. Like all the success we've had is in essence being stolen from these children. And it's being done while we sit there and watch. And because you're a good person, it's not even something you would think could happen, but it's been happening. And while we're arguing about pronouns and tax rates, they're playing chess in they're stealing our elections. They're creating fraudulent environments. They're using dog whistles. They are stealing elections and they are doing this chess making over a very slow, long period of time. They don't care if it takes decades. Ultimately, it's like the slow boil of death. It isn't diversity, it is not inclusion. This is a replacement of who we are with a Marxist mask and a crescent emblem. So you better wake up. They've already taken Dearborn. They're coming from Minneapolis, Brooklyn, Queens, every blue city that we have. They've already started by creating these, everyone's out to get you, white people are bad. Jews are trying to separate themselves from being white so they can take away the fiber of our nation. They flood everything with activists. They lock down Democratic Party from the inside out. So even the people that are just normal, decent people have no chance of standing up against it. It's a mob mentality. But here's the good news. They only win if we stay asleep. So I want you to share this episode, tag your friends who thinks this is just a conspiracy theory. I want them to see what B had to say. And we made this map public. So you have the ability, they can go through and see how all of these things connect with the receipts. Force them to watch the Sarsour clip. Force them to read the PSL documents. Force them to see Mamdani aide bragging about the plan in her own words. This is not a time to be polite. It's not a time to be tolerant. I'm not a tolerant person. I don't want to be tolerant. I don't want to be tolerant of evil. I don't want to accept evil. It's a cultural war. It's a war for our country, and they're already here. And I would say you just get armed with the truth, but that's not going to be enough. Get armed, get loud. I would tell you to get organized, but can't really do that because no matter where we go, we seem to fight over the ridiculous. We haven't come down to the part where we're ready to get aligned with just fundamental rights, fundamental issues. But if we do not do something now, we will die. That's it. 10 years from now, you'll be praying to, your kids will be praying to Mecca. Jesus will be completely taken over. And we won't have an American flag. They'll be flying a completely different flag over each one of our cities. That's where we are right now. So I would tell you that it's up to you. But go ahead and share this. God bless you.
Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
The Clinton Foundation, Apex Partners, the Islamic Circle of North America, Osama bin Laden, Grameen America, Shore Bank. While all of these might seem as if they're random, unconnected entities, what if in fact they were all connected?
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to part 3 of our explosive series of Islamic infiltration right here in America. And today, we're hitting on a hard-hitting topic that no one's talking about. ICNA, the Islamic Circle of North America. This organization looks like a charity on the outside, but it is waging full-on jihad across the world and here in America that nobody's talking about, except our guest, B. We're going to be joined again by B, as he dissects ICNA and the infiltration that is running through America from this organization that nobody knows about, nobody's talking about, and is slowly creeping in, taking over parts of America inch by inch, day by day, dollar by dollar. We have already exposed Linda Sarsour's direct pipeline from the Democratic Socialists of America straight into Zohran Mamdani's pockets that is now getting sworn in the mayorship of New York City in about 2 weeks. B's going to talk about Sarsour and her link into ICNA and just how explosive this organization is and just how deep and corrupt it is infiltrating American politics. Going to talk about Jamaat-e-Islami as well. Terror organization rising up in Pakistan that is also infiltrating here in America. Warning signs, warning signs, warning signs everywhere. Temperature rising, yet silence. So I don't want to waste any more time. Let's welcome B back on. B, welcome, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Always a pleasure
to be
dude.
here.
I agree, man. I learned so much every time we talk, man. It's absolutely insane. Just thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for taking your time to put together this graphic tool, this mind map. Let's put this up for a second so everyone can see it. If you just take a look at this mind map, it is absolutely tremendous. It is huge, right? It is connecting, but it's not really over encumbersome, is it, B? Right? Like these are all interconnected and it's relatively a small group, is it not, compared to what's going on in the world?
No, you're right. It absolutely is. And, with this mind map, you can sit there and put people to likes of Hillary Clinton just, 1 to 2 degrees away from, Muslim Brotherhood leadership. She's just one example of many, but with our topics today, we're going to hone in on these 4 specific speakers from ICNA and just how interconnected all of this is through ICNA, which is by extension a front for the Jamaat-e-Islami network in the United States. And we're going to really expand on that a little bit more and hopefully be able to kind of hit home just how proximate this issue is to the U.S. shores. So again, I'm looking forward to it, and I hope your audience is ready to go on this little journey through ICNA today with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start off. There's this post out there from War Horizon. What that post is referencing is that Hamas and Jamaat-e-Islami are having a huge rally in Pakistan last month. You want to talk to us about that a little bit before we play the cut?
Yeah, so the intent behind this is we want to show just how approximate these organizations actually are to each other. Hamas receives a lot of financial, uh, let's call it aid, I believe is a politically correct term, from Jamaat Islami's charity wing, their finance wing called the Al Khidmat Foundation. That's just one relationship of many which these guys share. They're all very interdependent upon each other. So I think what this festival does is it shows that they're all accomplices to each other, and B, just how vast of an organization this is within South Asia.
And what gets preached at these rallies? What's their main focus and talking points?
Well, I would allude back to the opening comments of our previous session with Mamdani when he talks about world revolution and the subjugation of all civilization to Sharia. They make no qualms about what their intents are. They're very open and public about it, and they have produced thousands upon thousands of documents and different pieces of literature espousing exactly what their intentions are. And it's not hyperbolic to say they want to literally overturn every democratic process in the West and turn it all into this resurgent caliphate.
That's a massive gathering. That looks absolutely huge. What how do I phrase this? What makes the people want to attend these rallies and carry on this message? Like, what strikes at the heart of them, right? Like, if someone was in America preaching that, hey, as Americans, we need to go everywhere and make everyone subject to us, most of this country think you're crazy, and we wouldn't turn out to support that. Why does it seem like there's a large Muslim population that is supporting this message and really not shooting it down or denouncing it at all?
Because it's effectively ingrained in their culture. One thing that Western analysts have constantly gotten wrong is they think of geopolitical issues in terms of more of an economic base. And if you can go back and you can read a lot of the literature which the CIA produced in the 1970s and 80s, and their focus was more on the economic side as opposed to the religious side. But when you have a country as vast as Pakistan with so many different languages and so many different backgrounds, the one unifying factor they have in all of that is actually religion. So they've figured out very well how to weaponize religion, and they've figured out as well how to utilize the democratic processes in the West to their own advantage, to the point where while they participate in the democratic process, the end game is to completely eliminate the democratic processes. And some of the thought leaders who are responsible for this are Sayed Qutb, as well as Hassan al-Banna, who we're going to hear about again, and Maulana Mamdani most prominently. So that really is their mindset behind why they behave in this manner.
David, can you take that down? Now, B, another question I just had while this was going on. Is it here in America?
Absolutely.
And what role did the previous administration play in letting the unchecked migration at the border? Like, what's the recipe here? Was that a key component in this movement, that they were allowed to move so many people across into our country, unvetted, unchecked, so it allowed that type of mentality to basically breed into our country and be welcomed in? Or was it here long before?
Well, it definitely played a part in it, especially when you go back to the Bengali coup in August of 2024. which planted Yunus and Jamaat-e-Islami in power in Bangladesh. And by the way, I just want to qualify this statement real quick. The Jamaat-e-Islami in India, the Jamaat-e-Islami in Pakistan, Jamaat-e-Islami in Bangladesh, and the Jamaat-e-Islami in Jammu and Kashmir are all effectively branches, extensions of the same organization, which was born out of Maududdi's school of thought in 1941 in Pakistan, which eventually became Pakistan. So I just want to kind of put all of that under that same umbrella for context. So when you hear me talking about JI in India or JI in Pakistan, it's all going to be the same organ.
And they're all working together as well, right? There's not like infighting like we have here. Like this is a unified movement, correct?
Oh, they're extremely unified, and they have been here. To answer your previous question, they've been in the West, not even solely specifically United States, but also a large footprint in the United Kingdom, Germany, Austria, in France as well. But the UK has their second largest footprint with the Islamic Foundation of UK and Oxford College of Islamic Studies. And again, as we go throughout this process, you'll find a lot of these same people are connected to these same institutions intercontinentally.
And they're getting these footholds, and are they masking it through the disguise of inclusivity, right? Like the conquering of the West. They're using the good nature of Christians and Western Europeans, what we are, right? They're moving in under the guise of inclusivity, because if you call this out, or if you resist it, you are then considered as an Islamophobe or a racist. Are you not? Or am I off base with this?
No, you're absolutely correct. And this is the point of the INCA Council for Social Justice is just one example. These organizations and their apparatus, these guys, they'll consult anyone from Fortune 500 companies, private entities, all the way up until the federal government. And their level of influence within the federal government is quite remarkable. As a matter of fact, one of the organizations we'll be talking about today actually goes to Congress annually. They have their own day called Muslim Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill. And this organization has only been around for 11 years, but we'll get to that because we're going to discuss this specific organization later. But these are the ones who are driving a lot of these DEI initiatives, a lot of these CVE initiatives, countering violent extremism. So they have a very close working relationship with ANTIFA, with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which we've also discussed on here, as well as various other progressive organizations. So they very much weaponize the progressive agenda to their benefit. So the answer to your question in short is yes.
And then the left becomes their useful idiots, in short. Because if you got Sharia law going on, people on the left ain't gonna like it.
Well, we have a case study. Just look at the 1979 Islamic Revolution, which is also very much relative to this, but I figure that's going to be farther down the road in the series, going back to this historical context. But the events of the 1970s and, how they allied themselves with in particular in the student wings, and we're going to understand more about their weaponization of student bodies as we go through this.
Cool. Do you want to talk about this letter to Ambassador Sales that addresses Jamaat-e-Islami? Damon, can you put that letter up for us so our audience can see it and B can get into a deep understand, or at least have our audience understand? They are a threat.
Absolutely. And if I may, I would like to read this letter in its entirety. It is 3 pages, but it's a very brief 3 pages with citations included. But it's an excellent bridge for the audience to be able to establish a baseline from, this party in South Asia, which we just watched a rally to, all the way to New York, where their front headquarters are located. So, if I may, I would like to just read this in its entirety, and I think it will really cover a lot of ground and be beneficial to the audience as a future reference point. So, with that, I'll get started. Dear Ambassador Sales, we write to you today concerning an issue vital to the U.S. and our allies, particularly those in the South Asia region, such as India and Bangladesh. Specifically, I read about the threat from Jamaat-e-Islami and their international network of proxy groups and associates, and significant evidence that these networks and proxy groups are linked to promoting extremist ideology and terror finance. As you may know, Jamaat-e-Islami was founded by Abu Ala Maududi in 1941 in India prior to partition of the Indian subcontinent. Maududi believed that Islam was a non-conventional religion and instead was a revolutionary ideology that called for an international revolutionary party, which he then established. It has driven conflict and violence and preached radical ideology in South Asia ever since. In recent decades, Jamaat-e-Islami has repeatedly acted in accordance with its theocratic views, including acting as a paramilitary wing of Pakistan's intelligence agencies during the Bangladeshi War of Independence, in which countless Bangladeshi freedom fighters and civilians alike were murdered. The War Crimes Tribunal continue to this day. Additionally, various wings of Jamaat-e-Islami, such as Hizbul Mujahideen, which was founded as the, quote, militant wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami, end quote, is a U.S. designated foreign terrorist organization. Jamaat-e-Islami's student wing in Bangladesh, Islami Chhatra Shibir, was named the 3rd most violent non-state armed group in the world in 2015. More recently, Jamaat-e-Islami was banned in India, controlled Kashmir for driving terrorism in the region. Unfortunately, Jamaat-e-Islami's affiliates and proxy groups are not limited to South Asia and extends to other areas of Asia and Europe and even extend even here to the United States. This is unsurprising given that Maududi explicitly stated that, quote, wherever you are, in whichever country you live, you must strive to change the wrong basis of government and seize all powers to the rule and make laws from those who do not fear God, end quote. Specifically of concern are the innocuous-sounding organization Helping Hands for Relief and Development, or HHRD, and their sister organization, the Islamic Circle of North America, ICNA. While they sell themselves as innocuous Muslim civic society organizations, they are, in fact, arms of one of the most radical networks in the world. There is no serious doubt that ICNA and HHRD are part of Jamaat-e-Islami's international network. Indeed, the evidence is overwhelming and extensive. Vali Nasir of Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced and International Studies names ICNA as one of the most important branches of Jamaat-e-Islami in the world. Regrettably, there is significant evidence that HHRD and ICNA are directly involved in terror finance. Indeed, HHRD, under the guise of international aid, has openly worked with U.S. designated terrorist organizations in the disputed region of Kashmir. In December 2017, HHRD organized a conference in Pakistan. Other organizations sponsoring the event included the Fala-e-Insaniyat Foundation, the charitable wing of the Pakistani terrorist organization Lashkar-e-Taiba. In 2016, the U.S. Treasury Department designated the Fala-e-Insaniyat Foundation as a terrorist organization. But that's just one example. Another sponsor of the conference was a Pakistani charity named Al-Khidmat, which is the main charitable wing of Jamaat-e-Islami. Al-Khidmat support the aforementioned Hizbul Mujahideen, Jamaat-e-Islami's armed wing, also a U.S. designated terrorist group, and works on projects that are run by Hizbul Mujahideen. But Al-Khidmat's ties to terror finance don't end only with other Jamaat-e-Islami affiliate groups. In 2006, Jamaat-e-Islami announced that Al-Khidmat sent 6 million rupees to Hamas, another U.S. designated terrorist group, for their, quote, just jihad, end quote. Moreover, HHRD's partnership with Al-Khidmat is not relegated to this one conference. Indeed, according to HHRD's 2017 report, HHRD had done 214 different projects with Al-Khidmat. Finally, we believe the documented facts above would give a reasonable person good reason to investigate just how extensive and systemic these ties are. The nexus of charitable networks and terrorist groups is well known and pernicious. This is particularly important to investigate as INCA has received over $10 million in government grants, even from the current administration. The ongoing tension and violence in Kashmir is a threat to peace and stability for both India and Pakistan. It is clearly in the best interests of the U.S. to keep peace in the region and not fan the flames of war. It is thus vital that the U.S. do whatever it can to stop the flow of any and all funds that can be utilized by terrorist organizations operating in the region. Thus, we ask that you use the full powers of your office to further investigate the potential terror finance links between groups like ICNA and HHRD and the U.S. and UNSC designated terrorist groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Hizbul Mujahideen. Now, a few additional comments to add to this letter, just for context for the audience here. According to ground reports in Abbottabad, Pakistan, as well as the Abbottabad Commission report, the area in which Osama bin Laden was captured was controlled by Hizbul Mujahideen, which, as we see from this letter, is effectively the militant arm of Jamaat-e-Islami. According to local reports on the ground, the house in which he was also, let's just say, defeated in, was also under the control of Hizbul Mujahideen. But if we could please, I would like to go back up here to the first page. And we see here this footnote at the very bottom. Let Us Be Muslims by Saeed Abu al-Maududi and Quram Murad, first published 1940. Abu al-Maududi is another name for Maulana Maududi, which is a more common name for him. But I would like to point out that both these men were not only leaders of the Jamaat-e-Islami. As a matter of fact, Quram Murad was also a translator for Maududi before he was the emir of the Jamaat-e-Islami. But their families are now living in the United States. They've been living in the United States for decades and have gained a very significant presence here. Not public, but they are very prominent actors within the ICNA community. As a matter of fact, Maududi's son was the first elected Secretary General of the organization now known as ICNA. And we'll get more into the genealogical side of Maududi in another series, but I just wanted to kind of bring it home how we go from this political party in Pakistan and their influence they hold within the United States. So I think this letter does a great job of initially bridging that informational gap, and from there I think we can move on.
Cool. Hey, Damon, can you throw up the mind map, please, so I could give the viewers, our audience, a look at this now? So what you just heard was the linking of this organization up here, Jamaat-e-Islami, with the Islamic Circle of North America down here. And that's our main focus of conversation today. And this circle right here has key players in it that we're going to start off with is Linda Sarsour. And if our audience remembers from our previous episode, Linda Sarsour had ties into the Democratic Socialists of America, right? She had ties to Alicia Signham Goodwin. She also has ties to the mayor-elect of New York City. And she also has ties to the Islamic Circle of North America, right? So like this is all very relative. And I just wanted our audience just to see that basic direct line of linkage from this terror network in Pakistan, right? To here in America, to this key woman that we're gonna do a little bit more on, B, to controlling a major metropolitan city in New York, right? Right? Does that all make sense, B? Am I understanding that lineage correctly and articulating that to the audience the right way?
Yeah, absolutely. The Muslim Democratic Club of New York is definitely a huge node in all of this. And I would just like to point out that Mamdani's campaign does have many significant ICNA players on his roster coming into his committee. One of those would be Armand Chaudhuri. The other one is a man he's bringing on by the name of, sorry, I'm a little under the weather today, Ramzi Qasim. And Ramzi Qasim, who he's going to be bringing on as the general counsel, Ramzi has a history of defending quite an interesting collection of convicts, criminals. Among those is a designated al-Qaeda terrorist who is convicted for a 2002 plot by the name of al-Dabi. Now, al-Dabi is the brother-in-law of one of the 9/11 hijackers who hijacked Flight 77. So when we think about the 25th anniversary of New York and the 9/11 attacks in New York, the general counsel for the mayor's office, his client is going to be one of those hijackers, relative of one of those hijackers. So again, I think it just really illustrates the level of infiltration, subversion that these organizations have had in the U.S., which is their stated intent. So,
Wow. I also know that, Mamdani is also putting a convicted felon in charge of public safety in New York City. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but
no, I haven't.
Dude, he's putting a dude that was in jail for 7 years for aggravated assault, robbery, battery, the whole nine. He's going to lead his basically Committee of Public Safety in New York City. So like they just are looking just to tear down our society with what they're doing. Absolutely amazing.
And I think we're naive to just sit back and say, well, they're going to fail and laugh at them, because it can cause irreversible damage just even within one mayorship alone. And again, that's their point.
Yep. And ICNA's
in an ideal world.
And ICNA's tied to it. You could tie ICNA to this. It's amazing with Linda.
Oh, more than just Linda.
You're right. Sorry.
His cabinet as well, too, man. Yeah. I mean, he's literally, the Muslim Democratic Club of New York. These people are all in cahoots, and ICNA is the genesis of it. And by the way, ICNA, just for context, is basically the organization which established the Fake Council as well as CARE in America. CARE, which is now designated as a terrorist organization. Yeah. So just for a little bit more context here, and this isn't meant to blackpill people, this is meant to educate people so they can understand what they're looking at.
No, completely get you. So yeah, let's get into it. Islamic Circle of North America, ICNA. First speaker today is going to be Linda Sarsour. Damon, let's put up that mind map. Oh, up, keep it up. Never mind. That's Linda up there. right? And we should recognize her from our previous episode, right? She was talking about how she owned Mamdani, right? And the big money coming into Mamdani's campaign were Islamic money, was it not?
Correct. Yes, it was. And if we go into the node with Linda's name on there, we'll find a bit of a background on her, and be able to tie her to the greater jihad, such as the Muslim Brotherhood. So if we can, please, that Religion of Peace article, and I'll just read from that specifically.
Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there you go, brother.
Quote, Linda Sarsour is a self-proclaimed progressive, there's that word again, activist dealing with issues regarding Muslims in both the U.S. and abroad. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, she is a child of Palestinian parents. At the age of 17, Sarsour was placed into an arranged marriage, and by her mid-20s already had 3 children. Sarsour's political career began at the Arab American Association of New York, the AAAMY, or ANI, where she began volunteering shortly after the September 11th attacks in 2001. She was appointed to the position of executive director at ANI after the then current director was killed in a car accident. She served as executive director from 2011 through 2017. ANI, formerly listed as a Qatar Foundation International as one of its supporters, but this has been removed from the official website as of 2017. QFI describes itself as a U.S.-based member of the Qatar Foundation. The foundation is funded by the government of Qatar, which in turn has shown support for the Muslim Brotherhood and even harbored political exiles from the Brotherhood via its news organization, Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera, the largest news establishment in the Arab world, has been known to promote pro-Brotherhood propaganda. The Qatari government even provided Egypt with $8 billion worth of loans after Brotherhood candidate Mohamed Morsi rose to power in 2012. Furthermore, the following excerpt from the Counter-Jihad report regarding ANI illustrates QF's association with the Brotherhood. Quote, Qatar Foundation also has a relationship with the International Institute of Islamic Thought, a U.S. Muslim Brotherhood entity that came under terrorism financing investigation after 9/11. The deputy director of Qatar Foundation's Center for Islamic Legislation and Ethics, Dr. Jasser Alda, is a teacher for the IIIT programs. His bio also says he is affiliated with them. IIIT is listed by the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood as one of our organizations and the organizations of our friends in a secret 1991 memo. The document also articulates the objective of its American network as a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within, end quote. So I think what this article does, it gives us a great illustration as to the apparatus which produced Linda Sarsour, which produces the Mamdanis of the world. And they are very much closely affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood. I'd like to point out just one key bit of information in here when it talks about how Qatar has harbored political exiles of the Muslim Brotherhood. The most prominent example of this is a man by the name of Yusuf al-Qaradawi, who we will see a photo of later on in the show. Yusuf al-Qaradawi also gave final prayers at the funeral for Maulana Maududi. So again, we see this sort of historical connection to current events. And al-Qaradawi, he's no longer with us as well, but just to kind of bridge the traditional, the historical to the contemporary. This letter does a great job of that, and it shows really who is behind Linda Sarsour and the apparatus which produced her, which is the same apparatus which produced Mamdani. And maybe even by the end of this, we could be able to say it's the same apparatus in a roundabout way, which also produced Barack Obama.
Wouldn't be surprised, brother. Wouldn't be surprised. The more you learn, the more you learn, the more you know, the more you know. It's all.
Yeah. Well,
it's takeover. It's an infiltration of America. Americans are unaware of this, and by the time most people wake up, hopefully it's not too late, and take this stuff a little more serious and realize you are actually fighting against your own better interest when you're allowing this type of movement to take shape in your communities and in your states and in your city councils and in your state houses and legislatures. It's a long march. They know they can't beat us on the battlefield, right? So they're figuring out the other way to beat us.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
You know, if you can't beat the bully straight up, you gotta find a different way to beat the bully. And they found it, man.
And, you know, well, subversion is it's a very effective process, and it's been studied greatly. And very reminiscent of the Fabian effect.
And you need mouthpieces for the movement. You need people that could look good in front of the camera. You need people that sound good in front of the camera. You need to be able to brainwash the people. That's why ICNA selected these people, right? You have Linda.
Correct.
I heard her speak. She's got the thick New York accent like I do. I can't believe this stuff that's coming out of her mouth, though. Like, whoa, lady. But yeah, man, it's absolutely, it's not by coincidence that they are selecting people to be these speakers for ICNA. Linda has her foothold in New York. We're moving on now to Nabi Fai, because he's going to be another member of this ICNA speaker circle. Damon, if you wouldn't mind, can you throw up the map, please? The mind map.
Yeah, and while he's throwing that up, I would just like to point out that while ICNA was incorporated in Florida, technically speaking, it was born in New York, and it still resides there to this day.
I'm sure.
But yes, so the next speaker we have on our list for ICNA is a man by the name of Syed Ghulam Nabi Fai.
And he's over here on our mind map, everyone. Sorry, B. I just want everyone to see the connection here. So we're going out from the ICNA circle all the way out here to Nabi Fai. And he has other connections that we'll get into a different episode. But if you guys could see, he's directly linked to also Jamaat-e-Islami as a direct partner. So this guy is very important for our audience to understand what he's up to. Sorry, just wanted to drop that in there for our people.
Oh, absolutely. No, you're totally correct. And the links on there, the articles for the audience to be able to read themselves.
And I believe that's Nabi Fai, correct?
Correct. That is him. Yes.
Yep,
he is he is the director of the Kashmiri American Council, where he worked with Paul Manafort, who is quite familiar to Trump circles. And he was a...
So then, it's not just the progressive left tied to these guys.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
They're coming from both sides. They're coming from both sides. Both political parties. Then they're infiltrating just different ways.
Oh, absolutely. And we're going to get into probably the most prominent example of that in a later episode, but I'm not going to spoil the fun with that one. So again, let's just stick to Nabi Fai here, because he is actually a very interesting character and node in all this. And if you go to the node, please, this is the press release. We have a press release from the FBI Force Vest. I can briefly read through it just so people can kind of get an idea of who he is and what he did. So again, yes, there we go. So Syed Ghulam Nabi Fai, 62, a U.S. citizen and resident of Fairfax, Virginia, pleaded guilty to conspiracy and tax violations in connections with a decades-long scheme to conceal the transfer of at least $3.5 million from the government of Pakistan to fund his lobbying efforts in America related to Kashmir. So again, this guy was actually being bankrolled by the Pakistani government, specifically the ISI, to fund his pro-Kashmir separatist initiatives in the U.S. And this is just one example of how insidious the world of lobbying can be. But he was very influential, and we're going to get into how he's been influential in the second article. And I'll briefly read this. This was him speaking in Baltimore, Maryland, where they IGNA typically hosts its annual convention. Excuse me.
On human rights.
Dr. Ghulam.
Wow.
Well, this is again how they disguise a lot of their activity. It's the virtuous, the humanitarian aid, the civic society,
the language,
as was alluded.
They tack the language. They use the language against us.
Correct, and that was very much addressed in the opening letter for the sales ambassador. So I'm just going to briefly read this. It's a really quick read, but it'll kind of give you an idea of why Trump is possibly doing some of the things he's doing, and that his cabinet might actually have an infiltration problem as well. So again, I'm just going to read this, and people can extricate whatever data points they want from it. Dr. Ghulam Nabi, chairman, World Forum for Peace and Justice, was speaking during the 50th annual convention of ICNA on the topic of the struggle of Kashmir, justice and freedom for a forgotten people. Dr. Fai said that the international policymaking experts and agencies have always warned that the Kashmir dispute is known to have the potential of large-scale international conflict with the possibility of nuclear confrontation. They have cautioned that Kashmir has produced 2 wars between India and Pakistan, and a third cannot be ruled out unless a resolution is sought to the satisfaction of all parties concerned. Dr. Fai emphasized that the recent nuclear tension between India and Pakistan is a proof that although paused so that sanity shall prevail, it has not ended altogether. The timely intervention by President Trump persuaded both India and Pakistan to have an immediate ceasefire. Otherwise, the world would have witnessed the dangerous war games between 2 nuclear-armed countries with devastating consequences, and tens of millions of people would have been absorbed and destroyed by war, and coming generations would have suffered from the ramifications of a nuclear disaster. His quote, "Global initiative, like the one initiated by President Trump in Kashmir, will not only end the bloodshed and suffering in Kashmir, but also have a direct positive effect on international security by eliminating regional fighting and national tensions. It is in everyone's interest to settle the Kashmir conflict peacefully without further delay." End quote. Now, I think that gives the reader kind of some insights as to why is this Pakistani ISI operative saying these things? Why is he, praising President Trump? And my personal opinion, and again, I want to keep this as my personal beliefs on this. I believe that this is just a temporary measure to stall until 2028, because the language that's being espoused here does not comport with the policies being espoused by Pakistan against India right now. And I'm not completely absolving India in this matter either. It's a very dangerous, dirty, and bloody conflict, which is taking place, for Americans on the other side of the world. But from a financial standpoint, it's taking place in D.C., in New York, and all throughout the U.S. as well, as we've seen with the pervasiveness of ICNA and the, let's call it, braggadociousness and belligerent behavior of CARE in the U.S. So again, this is just one example of how these issues translate into, operations which are also transpiring simultaneously in the U.S., albeit to a less kinetic degree. So I thought this article just, using his own quotes as to how they're approaching Trump, not from a confrontational manner, but from a very type of massaging of the ego, because in the Pakistani purview, the Jammu and Kashmir situation is long from over, and they don't want to see a peaceful resolution to it or any type of resolution to it so long as the current status quo remains. So just putting that out there, giving you a little bit of context. But with that, I think we can kind of move on. And again, this Voices of the East article, if any of your audience wants to read it for himself, it's available on the mind map, which is public. And it can be queried quite easily as well, actually. So with that, I think we can go ahead and just kind of push forward. But now we understand we're getting into Trump, ICNA, and how all this kind of correlates downwind of this South Asia issue.
Yeah, and you can see that there seems to be a shift on how the Middle East, specifically Muslim nations, are dealing with Trump mostly. It is massaging. Who just gifted him an airplane? Who was that?
No, that was Qatar.
Yeah, right. Just like,
Yeah.
And Trump is business. Trump is money. He accepts those gifts. He likes those gifts. It massages him, right? So warm him up. Take him out to dinner a couple of times. Get what you want. So I could definitely see. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying another example of that too is with this most recent Doha forum where you had some people out there going out to Qatar. No names need to be mentioned, but one of which was also Trump Jr. And Hillary Clinton, both being flown out for the Doha forum. So you understand the angle that they're playing this, and they're infiltrating both sides, and that's really what this is.
They do it with what unifies us all: money. They're doing it with money.
Yeah, and
it's crazy.
And I would like to point out too, what we read previously. Qatar spent $8 billion alone in Egypt in 2012 for one candidate who didn't last, by the way.
Wow.
And by the way, while Morsi was there, guess who was also there singing his praises? Zohran Mamdani. And after Morsi fell, Mamdani said he felt his life was threatened because he could no longer walk around as a proud brown man with a beard. He had to shave his beard, and you understand. He wrote a whole article for this over at Bowdoin College, espousing his affinity for the Muslim Brotherhood.
That's the same story as Ilhan Omar, right? Her family was tied to the ruling class, right? The ruling class fell.
Yeah.
Oh,
her father was a prominent military officer. Yeah.
Boy, a lot of common themes here, but yet they flee to the country that treats them so bad. I don't understand that. I don't understand why they come to here if we're so racist and oppressive to them. It just doesn't add up. And it's, I don't know. Just a little side note there. Sorry. Let's keep.
No, I mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
There's a historical precedent, and we'll get to that down the road.
All right. So our next one on the list is going to be Tariq Ramadan, another speaker of the Islamic Circle of North America. And Tariq's up here on our mind map if we want to take a look at it. And you can see how, if you could put and if you take a look at it, Tariq actually looks like he has connections to Hillary Clinton, the Oxford College of Islamic Studies, Hassan Abidin, and ICNA itself. Who would have thought? These people are connected.
Well, as a matter of fact, and Tariq Ramadan's going to be a very interesting one, I guarantee it. Tariq Ramadan is a very prominent author as well. He writes, he actually publishes, and he advises the ICNA Council for Social Justice.
And is this him? Is this the correct image of Tariq?
Yes, sir, that's him. And there's another...
it's amazing. They know who they're selecting to put them up, right? Because I guarantee they wouldn't select any of the 500,000 people we saw at the video at the very beginning of this to be a front man,
Correct.
right? They are
Correct.
very selective, clean cut, educated, well spoken. Hatred for America needs to be a prerequisite, though, doesn't it?
Yep, and connected.
And connected.
Yeah, and by this, it's a familial connection. So Tariq Ramadan, I think probably here with him, we should start at the first article. And I want to say this article by Swiss Info, which is a Swiss outlet, is a masterclass in propaganda. And
Okay.
it's very, it underlines why it is imperative for people to think critically when they're reading something. And this is, a very large Swiss publication, and we'll get into why this Swiss publication is discussing him. So, headline, Muslim scholar welcomed after lengthy U.S. ban. This is dated April 8th, 2010. Keep that date in mind, by the way, because of who was in office at the time and who the Secretary of State was. Swiss Muslim scholar Tariq Ramadan is on United States soil for the first time in 6 years. The Oxford University professor arrived in New York on Wednesday. The body of the article states that Ramadan said he was happy to be back despite an hour-long delay passing through customs. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton lifted the ban on Ramadan in January. He had been kept out after donating money to a Swiss charity suspected of supporting Hamas. Ramadan has described the controversy as ridiculous and said he had no link to the Islamic militant group. The contemporary Islamic studies expert will speak at a panel discussion in Manhattan on Thursday, followed by visits to Chicago, Detroit, and Washington, where he will meet members of Congress. That was an INCA conference, by the way. Side note, Ramadan wants to help, quote, open channels for better communications with Muslim-majority countries, end quote, according to the AP. Ramadan, 47, was born in Geneva to Egyptian parents. I want you to focus on that very last part, and this is going to go back to why these people end up in the West. You see, if we move in to this second article, we'll find out the truth about Tariq Ramadan and his activities. The title of the article is The Beginnings of Political Islam in Switzerland, Said Ramadan's Muslim Brotherhood Mosque in Geneva and the Swiss authorities. Abstract, quote, when the Muslim Brotherhood was banned in Egypt in 1954, many of its followers and leaders found refuge and support in conservative Islamic countries, most notably in Saudi Arabia and Jordan. In the late 1950s, a Saudi diplomat approached the Swiss authorities with plans to open an Islamic center in Geneva. From the beginning, the Swiss authorities welcomed the project because it was supported by several pro-Western Arab countries, which opposed Egypt under Nasser. Swiss-Egyptian relations had been strained for some years because of Nasser's socialist policies and Egypt's espionage and propaganda operations in Switzerland. The Islamic Center eventually opened in 1960 and was headed by Said Ramadan, an exiled leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. An exiled leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. Egyptian officials tried to thwart the center's activity and competed with it over influence on the small Arab student body then residing in Switzerland. As a politically active foreigner, the Swiss looked with suspicion on Ramadan. Still, they felt sympathy for his anti-Nasserist and anti-communist stance, appeasement to the right, ignoring internal reports revealing the anti-Western and anti-Semitic nature upon his ideology. After 1966, the Swiss Ministry of Foreign Affairs believed Nasser's Arab nationalism to be in terminal decline, expecting that Islamists might soon come to power in the Middle East. As a result, they decided to allow Ramadan and his family to remain in Switzerland despite overstaying their residence permits. This article sheds light on the founding years of the MB in Europe, a development still largely uncharted by historians, and the reaction of the Swiss to the appearance of a new phenomenon in Europe, political Islam. It argues that the context of Swiss-Egyptian relations is essential for understanding Swiss actions towards the Muslim Brotherhood. End quote. Now, we contrast that with what the first article said, and we're starting to get somewhere as to who this guy really is. Well, I'm going to expand on who he is a little bit more. His father, Saeed Ramadan, was the actual, not a leader, he was the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. And his wife, Tariq Ramadan's mother, was the daughter of Hassan al-Banna, who founded the Muslim Brotherhood. So Tariq Ramadan is the grandson of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, and Hillary Clinton lifted his visa ban so he could go speak at his INCA conferences. Oh, and by the way, his visa was originally denied in the mid-2000s when he was selected to go to a teaching position at the University of Notre Dame. So just
the
to
University of Notre Dame, everyone needs to understand that. The University, South Bend, Indiana.
Correct.
Catholic institution. Touchdown
Correct.
Jesus. Touchdown Jesus painted on the building.
And
sure
you'll notice he's also affiliated with the Oxford College of Islamic Studies, correct? You notice that was also on the mind map.
Yep.
If you want to go and
throw that up so they can see that. Yep, we're hovering over him now. You can see it. Hillary Clinton, Bam, Hassan, Oxford College, Islamic Foundation in the UK, Muslim Brotherhood. This guy is centrally located.
Can we click on that node? Do we have a few extra minutes here to click on that node just to kind of just nudge into the next one?
For who? For Tariq?
I know we
click on Tariq's node?
Well, for the Oxford College of Islamic Studies.
Gotcha.
I knew it wasn't on the agenda, but I want to point out who's in that picture. You see Tariq with two other people in that photo. Sorry, the photo just doesn't load properly sometimes on the mind map, but if you read the text, you'll see that he is posing in that photo in France. He's at a convention in France. The woman in the middle is the mother of the Emir of Qatar. The man in the left in the white hood, in the white hat, that is Yusuf al-Qaradawi, the exiled Muslim Brotherhood leader who was living in Qatar, who gave final prayers to Mamdani at his funeral, and who also sponsored Ramadan to go teach at the Oxford College of Islamic Studies. So they're infiltrating through the universities. And I think that photo is very powerful. They're with the mother of the Emir of Qatar. So I think that gives us a really good idea of who Tariq Ramadan is, and his time at the Oxford College of Islamic Studies alongside Hassan Abedin, who is Huma's brother, and by the way, who was Hillary Clinton's chief of staff when Tariq Ramadan's visa ban was lifted? Huma Abedin, Hassan's sister. Now we'll get into them later on down the road because that is a long one.
Gotcha.
But with that, we can go ahead and get back to another family favorite, another son of the organization, the Islamist realm. With that, we'll go to Nakibur Rahman, Dr. Nakibur Rahman.
Yes, sir.
Correct, that's him. And he's also got a nice little public photo on his Facebook of him in a Boston Bruins jersey, right?
Oh.
So again, he's a Bruins fan, man.
They play it well. He plays it well, huh? Acts like an everyday folk. Go to the game, support American sports, blend in. right? These are like sleeper cells here, aren't they? Some of them are sleeper cells. Some of them are actually outspoken, telling them what they're doing. It's quite remarkable. Or Trojan
Correct.
horses, whichever way you want to call them. But they're not really
Correct.
vocal about the dirt they're doing.
And we're going to start off on the articles with him, but I'm going to tell you why he is prominent at the end of this. Like, come towards the end, going into the next episode, and I've alluded to it before previously, but it really plays a central role in all of this, in particular in South Asia. And so with that, I think it's probably important for us to just go ahead and show the audience how prominent of a figure he is. So we go on the notes, we'll see that he's right over here. He's on the US CMO, the executive team. Now, what is the US CMO? Well, if you go back to the conversation we had, the comment I made at the beginning of the show about the organization which created the Muslim Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill, that was this organization, the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations. They are the largest Muslim umbrella advocacy and lobbying organization in D.C. And they're very much relatively new. I believe it's 2014 they were founded. But in 2024, Dr. Nakibur Rahman, who actually specializes in Islamic finance, was selected to be the the treasurer for the U.S. CMO. And again, these people are all speakers at ICNA. As a matter of fact, there's one document which shows him at this conference with a bunch of different other various officials from ICNA, the U.S. CMO, as well as Hakeem Jeffries,
Nice.
the current Democrat leader of the Democrat Party for the House. So,
Looking at these guys, they look like they want to do well for America. It seems like they want to make sure America does well and we thrive here.
yep, and we're going to get a little bit more into his background now with this article. Again, this will just be brief. I'm just going to read this and just kind of give you a background on it. And this is from a Bengali publication, and it's dated 21 September 2025. So very recent, right?
Yeah, 3 months, 2 months, I don't know, 3 months. Yeah.
So, quote, two more leaders from Jamaat-e-Islami and the National Citizen Party, NCP, will accompany Chief Advisor Dr. Muhammad Yunus during his visit to the UN General Assembly. They are Dr. Nakibur Rahman Tarek, that's him, son of former Jamaat Emir Modia Rahman Nizami, and Dr. Tasneem Jara, Senior Joint Member Secretary of the NCP. Dr. Yunus will depart Dhaka for the U.S. on Sunday night, September 21st. He will be accompanied by BNP, which is the Bangladesh National Party, Secretary General Mirza Fakhrul Islam Alamgir, BNP Acting Chairman Foreign Advisor Humayun Kabir, Jamaat's Naib Amir, which is their Vice Emir, Dr. Syed Abdullah Mohammed Taher, and NCP member Secretary Akhtar Hussain. Last year, Dr. Yunus attended the UN session with an 8-member delegation. This time he is traveling with political leaders. According to sources, as BNP is represented by 2 leaders, other parties were requested to nominate 2 delegates each. However, due to complexities in the U.S. visa process, only those who had attained visas earlier were included in the team. Jamaat sources confirmed that Dr. Nakibur Rahman is already in the United States and will join the delegation from there. The NCP stated that Dr. Tasneem Jara will also travel to the U.S. on Sunday night. In the past, national delegations to the UN usually included ministers and ruling party leaders. For the first time, leaders from opposition political parties are joining such a delegation. Now we understand why they are using this U.S. apparatus. I mean, these connections, this infiltration, and it's very convenient. But just to kind of go back more onto who his father was. So in 1971, Bangladesh had a civil war. Actually, East Pakistan had a civil war. East Pakistan became Bangladesh. And in that, Jamaat-e-Islami, specifically their Jamiat-e-Talaba, and their other student sections or other student arms, committed various different atrocities, most of which was geared towards them executing their own academic faculty at the university. And the death toll just from that little incident alone, which occurred under Jamaat-e-Islami, some estimates go up to as high as 300,000 dead, murdered, killed as a result of Jamaat-e-Islami in the 1971 Civil War. So there were subsequent tribunals after that. And again, the first letter talks about these tribunals still ongoing, and they were in 2019. His father, Modia Rahman Nizami, was convicted and was hanged in 2016 for war crimes and genocide committed in 1971. And now he's the treasurer for one of the largest, actually the largest, Islamist lobby in DC. And he is representing the Jamaat-e-Islami as an official delegation for Muhammad Yunus, who was brought into power by Jamaat-e-Islami, and to an extent Hillary Clinton. That's a whole nother episode right there. In 2024, in the August 2024 coup to oust Sheikh Hasina and the Awami League. So again, it's just, these two obscure data points just kind of meet in the middle now, and people understand, how that line correlates to, again, what's happening there and what's happening here. And again, these are all the same people that are affiliated with some of the most prolific terrorist organizations in the world, Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is funded not only by the ISI, which is controlled by Jamaat, it's funded by the ISI, but it's also to a degree funded by the Turkish MIT, as a matter of fact, which is Turkish intelligence. As a matter of fact, Turkish intelligence in the Pakistani ISI just recently paid an architecture and engineering firm called High Consulting to do the renovations on their Mansoura headquarters, for Jamaat-e-Islami. So again, ISI, Turkish intelligence, paid for the renovations on Jamaat-e-Islami's headquarters. And now this guy is representing them as their U.S. delegation.
They're organized, well-funded. They got great PR, it seems like. They're able to switch things up, hide things, reword things, do a little shuffle, right? And
right. And
it's amazing what they could do. Fascinating, actually.
Going from the lobbying angle into the next article from the American Spectator, I think it really explains a lot of this, how they're able to do this. So I would like to read parts of this as well.
Who's that beautiful woman there? I'm sorry, B. Who's that beautiful woman right there?
I heard she's Somalian.
I got you, man. Yeah, another one. Sorry, just had to throw it out there.
Well, and now you understand how incestuous all this is.
Yep.
And this article really drives a lot of this home too. And again, this is all primary source material, at a minimum, it's all peer reviewed. So this isn't just, I'm not just reading from some, blog, whatever.
You're not you're not a conspiracy theorist with all this. You're not reaching. It's all here. You're just tying the actual facts together.
This is all primary. Yeah. And this is just all primary material. So, I think this article really does a good job at illustrating some of their modus operandi too. Quote, fresh from its lobbying activities at the National Muslim Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill, heard that before, where a coalition of Islamist groups scored personal FaceTime with nearly 200 members of Congress. The Muslim American Societies, MAS, Milwaukee chapter late last month completed its 13th annual conference called Jannah, the Ultimate Prize, a reference to the rewards of the hereafter. As part of the U.S. CMO visiting Washington on April 1st and 2nd, mass delegates speciously presented themselves as the moderate representatives of American Muslims. However, the veil was once again lifted last month when Mass invited a hardline coterie of Islamist clerics, professors, and polemicists to address its annual Milwaukee convention. Mass was founded in 1993 as the, quote, overt arm of the Muslim Brotherhood in America, end quote, a transnational Sunni Islamist organization that is the progenitor of terrorist outfits such as Hamas. Nonetheless, mass lobbyists such as National Director Ayman Hamas were welcomed with open arms in Washington by a bipartisan range of unsuspecting lawmakers. The most senior mass official to speak at the Milwaukee Convention on April 26th and 27th, Hamas, was photographed just 2 weeks earlier rubbing elbows with recidivist anti-Semite Representative Ilhan Omar during the Muslim Advocacy Day. Hamas was also spotted with U.S. CMO Director Usama Jamal, a longtime Islamist and fundraiser for terrorism financier Sami al-Aryan, as well as Zahid Bukhari and Naqib Rahman, two Islamic Circle of North America affiliates who openly support Jamaat-e-Islami, a violent South Asian Islamist movement to which INCA belongs. So again, no need to read the rest of it. I think that summarizes their relationships perfectly and who these people are. Again,
Yes, sir.
People can read the rest of it if they dare so choose.
And they also meet with our DHS officials, do they not?
Yes, sir, they do. So they not only meet with them, they advise them. From the USCMO's own site, quote, a delegation of leaders from the USCMO met with officials from the Department of Homeland Security to discuss issues of concern to the American Muslim community. Of the many topics covered were civil rights and countering violent extremism, which is also known as CVE. The delegations also discussed future cooperation between the council members and DHS with a focus on increasing engagements on a local level. The delegation from USCMO included Secretary General Usama Jamal, Nihad Awad, and Robert McCaw of the Council on American Islamic Relations, as well as Naeem Beg and Ramiz Abed of ICNA, as well as Osama Abu Irshad of the American Muslims for Palestine and Imam Talib Sharif of the Mosque Cares Ministry of Imam W.D. Muhammad. The divisions that attended this meeting include the Civil Rights and Civil Liberty, Countering Violent Extremism, CVE, Counterterrorism, TSA, the Homeland Security Advisory Council, and the Faith-Based Security and Communications Advisory Subcommittee. So again, with all this, we see that these organizations which have direct ties, literal direct ties, we've just connected these dots, can walk into Capitol Hill, have their own Muslim Advocacy Day, and then walk into DHS and the TSA and Homeland Security and advise them on policy.
Yeah.
So I think we need to have a very serious conversation about these organizations, and it needs to happen very soon.
Yeah, man, this is pretty eye-opening to me. Like, they are well-funded, they are unified, they're organizing, and they're taking priority over just everyday Americans. They're getting access to the politicians at all different types of level way easier than average Joe that pays their taxes and is doing everything right can. It should alarm everyone.
Absolutely. And our federal government has funded it as well.
And when we talk about that, how many of our politicians do you think are fully aware that this is happening? Or are they just being told, hey guys, this is a good photo op for you, hop in?
I think it's probably a combination. I don't think a lot of the politicians understand the gravitas of the situation in South Asia, and how that connects to, writ large, the more global war on terror, and how that all kind of, interacts and relates. I think that they're sold these, polished politicians, as you alluded to earlier, the second and third generation of these leaders who've basically been bred for these positions and responsibilities their whole life. Because Americans tend to think of things in terms of election cycles, politicians in particular. These people think of everything, they operate in terms of generations.
Yeah,
So
our timeline's 4 years. Their timelines are, like you said, generational.
Correct.
So they play the long game, the long march, right? All that stuff. They play it all. We just jump and jump.
Well, they've definitely adopted the program of the long march through the institutions. This is why they target places like Oxford, which basically pulls, Whitehall and Home Office and over in the UK, basically pull all their candidates from the Golden Triangle, from Oxford and Cambridge, and they end up there.
Yeah, and that goes back to what you were talking about, the second and third generations, right? Those people they're westernized. They're not from the Middle East anymore, right? They spend time in Europe, they spend time here in America, so they get exposed to our culture, they get exposed to our educational system, get exposed to how we think as Americans and how we go about our day-to-day. While they're being exposed to that, they're also being uploaded with their beliefs and what we're doing here to the American people, right? So like they're the ultimate enemy, because they have been with us, they have been here with us, they know us, right? And they're also being uploaded with how to fight us. So it's very dangerous, these second and third generations.
Well, and to that point as well, that's also true on the kinetic side as well. Jamaat tends to embrace both the nonviolent and the violent side of jihad. They'll basically take whatever they can get. But, probably one prime example of that was, with the Paris attacks. Most of those were second generation terrorists. A lot of them were born in Europe or, whatever. I believe most of them were from Belgium. I haven't looked at that issue in quite a while, but most of the terrorist attacks which happen within Europe are, again, conducted by second generation. And, Tariq Ramadan, he was born in Switzerland.
Right.
He wasn't taken over. He was actually born there.
Yeah.
So
Native European, if you actually break it down, right? Born in Europe, Native European. Well,
yeah, exactly.
But they don't identify that way. They identify with ideology over everything else, correct?
Correct, yes, sir, they do.
Yeah, wow, B, just explosive, dude. Every time I talk to you, man, my mind is blown. I learn more. Sometimes I wish I didn't learn as much as I did, but I'm glad I do, because I need to be aware of this so I could help prepare my wife and my family and friends that don't think I'm crazy. You know what I'm saying? Because I talk to my people about this, and some of them listen, and some of them like, yo, dude, you're off the rails. No way this is going on. I'm like, dude, it is. Bobby, you need to listen to me, right? But I just appreciate it, man, because the more we spread, the more we share, the more we learn, the more we can be aware, hopefully the more we can resist.
Yeah, it's definitely not a coffee table conversation, but it's also not meant to black pill. It's meant to have, the opposite effect. So hopefully it does that. Hopefully people learn from it. Patterns and recognitions, man. I mean, just pattern recognition is so key. Relationship science is so key. These are literally family affairs, quite literally.
And that's why it's generational, because they just pass it through the family. It's there, boom, boom, it's generational. Here you go, guys. This is what grandpa did. Hey, this is what dad did. Hey, this is what you're going to do, right? And they take that to heart. and becomes their identity, becomes their livelihood, it becomes their mission. Yeah, man.
Correct.
It's tough to fight though. It's tough to fight. It's tough to fight an enemy that fights that way, especially if especially if you're not fighting that way. You know, it's tough to fight that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we are so far behind the curve, and we do this because they understand very well how to manipulate this this tolerance and inclusivity, and you know, all the others. They know how to manipulate that to the tilt. So they're extremely effective. You can read a lot of their own stuff. Like, they are very much they're proud of their ideology and their intentions, and they're, you know, don't take my word for it. I've read hundreds of documents, actually probably thousands now, of their documents and what they espouse, and they're very much on track to subvert Western society unless we change course. And again, one part of that would be designate Jamaat-e-Islami as a foreign terrorist organization, and you know, all of their affiliates. I think that would go really long ways.
Cool.
With that, I would also
go ahead. Sorry.
I would also encourage people just to for resources, they can check out a website I'm working on called www.counterdawa.com. Again, sorry, a little under the weather, so it's that time of the year.
Yep.
But I appreciate everything you guys have done, and I appreciate the platform to be able to discuss this. I hope it is illuminating for people, and looking forward to the next one, because I hate to be a bad news bear, but I think people are really going to be surprised at some of the other people we're going to talk about who have infiltrated.
Fair enough. Fair enough. B, once again, thank you so much for your time and your knowledge. I hope our viewers take note, learn something from this, be a little more proactive, and stay tuned, because there is a whole lot more we're going to be unpacking in future episodes with B going forward in this. Just way deep, guys. Just way deep. And like he said, it's not to blackpill you. It's just to bring awareness. And it's just a lot of information that you got to digest and be aware of actually the moving pieces and components of what's going on behind the scenes, and actually who are some of these puppet masters that we talk about on Untamed all the time. We're giving you some pictures and names to the puppet masters about what's going on behind the scenes. So yeah, great conversation today. Great conversation today. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Stay frosty, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Take care, everyone.
Rise up untamed in the heart of the fight where the wild ones roam. Joe Oltmann's calling, bringing truth back home. From conservative daily to this untamed fire, we shatter the silence, lifting spirits higher. No chains can hold us, no lies can prevail. Authentic and fearless on this rugged trail. Patriots gather under stars and stripes. Untamed nation, igniting the night. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever strong. Play it again all night long. Break the mold, chase the real. No whose voice leads the untamed crew.